We're online, Mr. Bear. We're ready to go.
Ready?
We're online, Mr. Bear. We're
Okay.
ready to go.
All right. Thank you so much. So we are back in our public forum. On 9.7, I'll go to Councillor Jens to
So moved.
move the recommendation.
Second.
Second by Councillor Salvador. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried 10-3. 9.8, Councillor Principe, you want to move that for information?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move 9.8.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Councillor Rice. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay, so that concludes items in the 9 category. Now we are back in the 8 category, right? All right, motions pending. The first one that we have is the 8.1, temporary positions within the city of Edmonton. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. So I was wanting to amend the wording of my my initial notice of motion, and I'm wondering if council would provide me that leeway to do so.
It depends on, like, if it's a substantive change, right, then my understanding is that then you would have to give another notice of motion, because I don't know what those changes are. And if they're minor changes, then it's fine. That's well, that'll be my understanding. So depending on so procedurally, to be fair to everyone, that we follow the same rules, right? That if it's substantive changes, then I would have to rule it out of order. If they're minor changes, then we can consider. Am I right in that assessment, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, until we know what the restatement
Yeah.
is.
So I don't know what this change is.
And so I've gotten advice from the clerk, and she does feel that it is substantive changes. So and I was just wanting to save time debating and discussion of making amendments to it. But I think what I will do then is I will go ahead and make the motion for, as originally stated.
Or if you want to get a sense from council whether they're substantive or not.
Okay,
we can,
I have put the change in the chat if I could
but
get
then
it.
what we can do, we can pause this, we can go through all the other items first, then we can come back to this later at the end. Otherwise, because my concern would be if we generate half an hour debate on, right, then we won't be able to finish the agenda. That's only.
Well, that's the thing, but and I wouldn't want to move forward on the other items and then not have the opportunity to,
Okay, got
to
it.
present
Okay.
this. So, can I get an indication from my council members?
It is,
Oh, it's in the chat.
No, it's not.
I don't consider it substantive.
it is in the chat,
Okay.
but
I'll put it in, if it's the wording that was provided to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I didn't hit send.
That's okay, it's in the chat.
But the clerk's opinion is that it is substantive in your discussions, right? And I would rely on clerk's opinion. As chair, I would have to rule it out of order.
I would like to challenge the chair.
Second.
Yep.
The underlined words are just changes along the way, but.
So can we
yeah.
just get clarity, if there's a challenge, then
Yes.
all other debate needs to stop? So just
Yes.
to be really clear, Mr. Bear, are you, because the public has no idea what's just happened, so Councillor Wright,
So Councillor Rice gave a notice of motion on June 20th. asking administration to provide a memo to council outlining the work underway to revisit and rationalize the use of temporary positions within the city. The information provided may include, but is not limited to, number one, a cost-benefit analysis that looks at employee benefits versus administrative costs related to offboarding and onboarding of employees, recruitment, mandatory training, regulatory certification. And number two, the potential impact of this work on permanent and temporary workforce. So that was a notice of motion given on June 20th. And the revised motion is that administration return to council with a report outlining the current use of temporary worker positions and the work underway to revisit and rationalize temporary and provisional positions within the city. And the information provided should include, but is not limited to, number one, identifying the number of temporary workers in a by department and provide a breakdown of contract length over the past 5 years that have been rehired or the gap of unemployment between rehiring. Number two, cost-benefit analysis that looks at employee benefits per number of employees per salary range, administrative costs related to offboarding and onboarding of employees, recruitment, mandatory training, regulatory certification, and the potential impact of this work on the permanent temporary workforce. So it's a significant change from the original motion, but there's a challenge.
So again,
From
thank you
council.
for reading that out, so now the public understands, and your decision, Mr. Mayor, as the chair, is to say
Yeah.
that the restated motion is out of order.
Yeah,
and
based on the advice that the mover of the motion received from clerk, I am stating that this is substantive change. I'm ruling it out of order.
Thank you, and then just to confirm,
And
Council-
procedurally, because notice would have to be, if there is a substantive change, then notice would have to be given again, right? That's,
Point-
so it's not within the time frame that is required for notice to be given. And we have a challenge to my ruling, and we will focus on the challenge now, right?
So do I get a chance to explain my challenge? We've never challenged before, so I'm wanting to know the procedure.
So I don't know, Madam Clerk, can you please guide Councillor Rutherford in that?
Before that point of order, Mr. Chair.
More point of order to the challenge?
No, and that I heard, and then may I request a clarification, because I heard you said Councillor Rice. So I would
Councillor
like.
Wright, I said.
Yes, I would like to get a clarification, is Councillor Wright.
That's what I said, Councillor
But
Wright.
what is I heard is Councillor Rice.
No, I meant Councillor Wright. Okay, sorry, thank you, Councillor Rice. Madam Clerk, please guide Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, so the way that these have been handled in the past is that the chair does not need to leave the chair. The councillor has issued a challenge. It's my understanding you call the vote, but I need to go back and check if it's even debatable. And if it's not technically a motion, so it's my understanding from previous practice, you don't then debate it. There's just been a simple challenge, but I'd like to just triple check.
Can you please triple check and,
Yeah, for sure.
In the interest of time, can I just put forward my
no, we
original
can't.
motion?
We
and-
can't. There's a challenge to the chair. We have to deal with challenge first. It is debatable.
Mr. Mayor, in the interest of time, I would rely on what has been past practice. There's been a challenge to your decision. I would call the vote, and a friendly reminder that when it comes to challenges, it requires 1/3 of those present to vote in favor with the chair's ruling for the challenge to be overturned.
2/3 present, right?
I said 1/3?
To be, so can you repeat that again, sorry?
It requires 1/3 of the people present in the meeting to agree with the chair's ruling for the challenge to be overturned.
Okay. Okay, so we
Third
go.
point of order. So just to clarify, I have no ability to explain the rationale of my challenge.
Madam Clerk?
Yeah, I'm just going back on past practice.
Sure, we just never have done this before, so it's just new territory, so I apologize.
Sure.
That's fine.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. It's my understanding from past practice that it's not debatable. A decision's been made, there's been a simple challenge to it, and you just call a vote. But I'm happy
Okay.
to take a recess and consult with law if that's what you'd like me
No,
to do.
no, that's okay. I just was prepared to explain the rationale, but happy to just go to a vote then.
I'm sorry, Councillor Hamilton, what is it?
Oh, I was just on a point of order. Can you, the clerk explain what a yes vote and what a no vote mean
Yes,
in this
please.
context?
Yeah.
Because
We haven't done this
I
before,
think
so
it's
please.
reversed, as I recall. I've seen it once.
Yep, so again, you don't, this is not a motion, even though you're having a vote, so no seconder is required, but thank you for having one. So if you agree with the chair's ruling, you have to vote in favor. Sorry?
So if you agree with chair's ruling,
Yeah, sorry, okay. Yeah, so the decision is not about if you agree with the challenge. The decision that you're voting on is, do you agree with the chair's ruling?
Okay.
If you agree with the chair's ruling, please vote yes.
Yeah.
E-scribe is not set up for this, so you're gonna vote electronically. Ignore what it says on the screen, and then I will count the votes and tell you if the challenge, if the ruling of the chair is upheld.
okay.
So
So
for
yes
clarity-
is upholding, no is not upholding.
Yes.
Okay, got the ruling of the chair. Okay, got it. Is that clear, everyone? All right,
And when you say voting electronically, not in e-scribe,
we
No,
still voted.
You're going to use e-scribe, but e-scribe is not set up for challenge, so please vote in e-scribe. I will write down the vote, and then rather than display the vote up on the screen, I will tell you if it's upheld or not, and I'm happy to share who votes in favor and against. It's just up on the screen, it works on a unanimous presence, and this is not, again, the decision you're making is, do you agree with the decision of the chair, which is to rule the motion out of order?
The impact for the voting results, in favor of chair's ruling, that means the challenge will not be accepted. Is that impact, right?
If you agree with the chair's ruling, vote yes. If
Yeah.
you don't agree with the chair's ruling, please vote no.
I just want to say the impact for the challenge, because we are dealing the challenge.
There has been a challenge. You're
Yeah.
voting on whether the ruling of the chair is to be upheld or not. If a third of the people in the meeting agree with the decision of the chair,
The challenge will not be accepted, okay?
the
so
challenge has already been accepted, which is
will
why
be
you're voting on
different
this.
words. I know what you mean now, Thank
Okay,
you.
all right, okay. Okay, it's clear, let's. All right, please vote.
So I'm going to show it up on the screen. I'll show you the results.
Yeah,
But the outcome is going to show wrong, so Rama's going to display the results. So more than a third of the people agreed with your ruling, so the ruling is upheld, the challenge is defeated. Please
Okay.
ignore the red line at the top of the screen.
okay. And to be fair to myself, I did not see the new wording until today. And I would humbly request that please such changes be shared in advance.
and yes, and I do apologize for that procedural.
Thank you.
So may I ask, can I put forward my original motion?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so my original motion is that administration send a memo to council outlining the work underway to revisit and rationalize the use of temporary positions within the city. And this information provided may include, but is not limited to, a cost-benefit analysis that looks at employee benefits versus administrative costs related to offboarding and onboarding of employees, such as recruitment, mandatory training, regulatory certification. and the potential impact of this work on our permanent and temporary workforce.
Second.
Second by Councillor Knack, right? Okay. You want to make the introduction, Councillor Wright?
Yes, please. So I do understand that it's Mr. Corbold's ultimate responsibility as far as the operations of our employees. But I think ultimately, as a council, we're ultimately accountable for it. Looking through our policy, C600, which deals with performance management, we're tasked to look at the efficiencies as to how the city operations work. I'm a little bit concerned as we head into our budget discussions, what sort of impact that this will have on those budget discussions. And also and the impact of the rollout on our snow and ice programs as well. Looking at policy 612A, we talk about living wage, and I think benefits are an integral part of that total compensation package, and it also considers the overall effectiveness and well-being of our staff. So that's one reason why I wanted a little more specificity in the new motion that I was looking to put forward, so that we do have that information when it comes to our budget deliberations in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. We'll go to questions now. Councillor Knack?
Yes, so just to confirm from a process perspective, while it was deemed that we could not restate the motion, it would still be in order to move the amendments, to move the desired changes as amendments, I believe, correct?
Madam Clerk?
There's the rules around debate still stand. The motion's been moved and seconded. Depending on what the amendments are, the motions on the floor can be amended, and then amendments to the amendments. Normal processes prevail.
Then I would like to make the amendments
Okay.
that were noted in the new wording of the motion.
Second.
And can you just explain how you're going to do that?
Yes, so I think it is, it has to be so we'll start in the first line. So instead of provide a memo, we would change to return to council with a report. That's change 1. Yep. Change 2 is outlining the current use of temporary worker positions and striking outlining, because the current wording is outlining the work underway to revisit and rationalize the use of temporary employees. So that's the second change. The third change is, essentially it's an addition of point 3, I think, which was the identifying the number of temporary workers by department and provide a breakdown of contract length over the past 5 years that have been rehired and the gap of unemployment between rehiring. And I believe I've captured the...
Sorry, can you just, is it just, so I'm trying to look at this both
Sure.
on the screen.
I understand. Yeah, I'm doing the same just to... I think instead of renumbering as currently worded, we would just add it as a
Add a
point
point
3.
four?
So,
Or
or
add
a
a
point
point
3, which is number 1 in the new wording will become point 3 to the original wording.
We'll craft that. If you can
Absolutely.
just maybe,
Yeah,
back
absolutely.
to
Yeah,
it.
we can take some, that's the intent. I think we've covered the major points there. So those would be the amendments to the motion.
want to just, rather than wait for us, if you want to keep talking, or?
Yes, so this has been seconded by Councillor Rutherford. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have nothing to add. We've heard the original mover's stated intent. I think it's worth debating what they wanted to make a motion for, and this is just the right process to get there. So,
Yeah.
And so I'll support that because that's what the original mover wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Knack. Councillor Hamilton, you're next.
Yeah, and this is on the amendment as well as the material, I think, motion change. This is normally the work in your delegated authority, within your delegated authority, Mr. Corbold, correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding, Councillor.
That you delegate to Ms. Armstrong.
Correct.
All right. So Ms. Armstrong, how much work would it take to return this information to council?
Thanks, Councillor. So specifically with respect to the new additional request, and I'm going to say what it is, to identify the number of temporary workers by department and provide a breakdown of contract length over the past 5 years that have been rehired and the gap of unemployment between rehiring, specifically in relation to that. This is a very complex request for many reasons, and I'm going to provide them to you. Since 2017, the city has processed approximately 21,000 temporary, including seasonal hires. This request will require us to physically and individually review at least 21,000 records for the last 5.5 years. Number two, the city's COVID-19 response phase caused a reduction in services across the city, as you would be well aware. This significantly impacted our workforce and caused unusual fluctuations over the entire workforce, including temporary employees. So for example, between March and June of 2020, we temporarily laid off 2,600 permanent employees, several hundred of which were temporarily redeployed to mitigate the negative impacts of the layoffs. Next, as indicated in the memorandum I sent to council last week, the city uses temporary assignments, and they are an essential part of our management of our workforce for 3 primary reasons, which I will not restate. They're in the memo. Next, in order to respond to this part of the request, in addition to the manual review of the 21,000 plus records, we will have to write code, which does not currently exist, with our data analytics team in order to analyze the results of the manual review of the documents. That will require a realignment of internal resources, including the full-time reassignment of a senior HR business partner, 2 additional HR strategic services team members, and members of the Workforce Analytics, Employee Services Center, and Talent Acquisition teams. Although I cannot tell you the exact amount of effort required, we are confident, after having looked at this for the last 48 hours, that 3 people will need to be moved over full-time for 3 months, and ongoing work being completed critically in the organization will need to be temporarily backfilled, somewhat ironically, at a cost of approximately $85,000. And finally, beyond the direct dedicated staff assigned to this work, there will be, and what I've already enumerated, additional resourcing requirements, which will create financial and service level impacts within our department and potentially others. And finally, and again, ironically, some of the key people that will need to be reassigned to this work are working on the seasonal workforce project, which Andre has spoken about, which is examining opportunities to transition temporary workers to permanent positions. And that work will slow down as a result of the redeployment of these resources to meet this particular part of the motion. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to explain for council's information what this will involve in administration.
Thank you. I guess my question to the mover, I'm not clear, and I say this as somebody who started their career as an adult in this world with the city of Edmonton in a temporary 11-on, 1-off position. I'm not clear, as somebody who has literally had this job, what we're trying to accomplish with this motion.
So what I'm trying to accomplish or address is, from what I heard from people while on the campaign, from city workers as well currently, even in my experience working in the financial services industry, doing credit applications for people requiring permanent employment, and their temporary status was a concern and sometimes considered a risk in granting loans and mortgages. So I'm just, I guess I need a more fulsome explanation as to why we are only hiring these temporary people. My concern, like I said, with inflationary pressures, the living wage should maybe take into account the full benefit package. I'm also concerned about, right now, there seems to be a labor shortage in some industries as well, and I'm concerned that maybe some of our temporary employees might look elsewhere rather than take another temporary contract.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, for that answer, Councillor Hamilton, that's your time. Councillor Paquette?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, to administration, it sounds like either we reallocate folks already in our workforce, so they're doing this rather than something else, or we have to bring on new folks either to do this work or to replace the people who are then going to do that work. And so presumably there'd be some capacity gaps there. Thoughts on that?
Maybe I'll just start, Councillor Burkett, by saying my priority, like I agree with Councillor Wright about the concern, and my priority is to do the analysis we're doing. And you'll recall that we transitioned 46 positions about 2 months ago from temporary to full-time, and I've got more work going on and doing that. That to me is the priority effort. And maybe once we've finished that effort as a priority and come to council and said, okay, we've done all the transitions we think we can do in the entire organization, then maybe we could do this work, would be my suggestion from a priority perspective. But my number one priority right now with this topic is to do the analysis to build on the 46 positions we've already shifted. And we've spoken to QP and other unions about this, and we want to continue that work.
Yeah, so, and then to the mover, it's failing on my part. I really don't understand what the end goal is for this motion, besides curiosity. So maybe you can help me out.
Okay, it is more than curiosity. It is, do we need to take a look at our policies, specifically the C600 and 612A?
Point of order.
Councillor Rutherford, what is your point of order?
Are we not debating the amendment? Have we dealt with the amendment?
No, it hasn't been put on the floor yet because we asked for some time to
Yeah,
correct it. I
the
put it in
amendment is still being
Okay.
worked out.
I thought the amendment had been put on the floor by Councillor Knack and then seconded by me. So
Yep.
I was confused as to why we're still debating the original motion.
No, it's not been, the wording is because all the complexity around changes. Clerk needs time on that, so still being
Okay.
worked out.
I've shared that with council in the chat, and whenever it's made, just let me know and we'll post it on the screen. But what's on the screen right now is what you're talking about.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Paquette and then we'll come back to put that on the floor. Councillor Paquette.
All right, thank you. I think I lost about a minute there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so go ahead, Councillor Wright. I'm trying to understand what you're trying to achieve.
Okay, like I said, I'm just wondering if under governance and policy, if we should be looking at those policies a bit more. I'm also a little bit concerned with the, as Ms. Armstrong outlined, the amount of work and effort that's required to follow through on the request, is how administration can, I guess, make an assessment without having that information up front. So they're working right now at maybe possibly converting some more temporary positions into permanent positions, but on what information are they using, on what basis? So I think that's something that we need to have on hand as well. Like I said, when we go into budget deliberations, I've had councillors raise concerns about FTE numbers going up. So I think we need to look at permanent FTE in relation to current temporary FTE.
Oh, okay. So that's not actually in the motion, though.
Yes, the potential
Okay,
impact
so
of the work
I'll
of
move over
permanent and temporary
to
workers.
Andre maybe. hearing the rationale behind the motion, which and I've been taking some notes. It sounds like that maybe there's an opportunity here to coordinate a little bit more with Councillor Wright and her office to create a motion that actually gets to the core questions that I think are good questions that she has. But I'm not sure if this motion actually does that. I don't know. I'm actually I'm not seeing it, so maybe a little help. Mr. Corbold?
We're happy to work with anybody moving forward to try to do that.
Yeah, no, and also I'm just curious, how long would this work take? Because I remember a motion on consulting, and that took, I think, 1.5 years, maybe 2 years to get back because of the sheer amount of work it was. It was a lot of work, and this looks like it's even more work. So this looks like a multi-year process.
Yeah, I don't really want to commit to so we've been looking at this for, like Ms. Armstrong said, about 48 hours. I think at least 3 or 4 months to deliver the specifics of this. I think also though, like what is the next step if we bring this information forward? I think I'm trying to figure out like what then next. I certainly have no problem. I think we're looking at those policies already from similar perspectives. So I don't know. I'm just fundamentally, I believe we're doing all this work now already. And I thought
that was my understanding. So that's why I was a little bit lost on this motion.
Yeah, and I thought we had demonstrated
the questions are good questions, I think.
Yes.
So if I may,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, Councillor Paquette, I don't want to take your time, but I do have a comment to make. Now, I'm unclear about the intent for the motion. The motion, as it reads, is on side because council has the ability to ask questions of this nature, has a duty to ask questions. Now, if the intent ultimately is to look at motions to change the workforce, how we manage the workforce, or change administrative structure, I would call a challenge on that one as it is clearly within the delegated authority that council has given to the city manager. Now, if the intent is to inform as a part of budget discussions, I think that would be fine. But any further motion that gets into changes, as I've outlined, I would say that's clearly within the city manager's delegated authority.
Okay, so it sounds like even if we got this back for a budget, to inform the budget, it would have to be extremely high level. And it probably wouldn't go to the depth that Councillor Wright is looking for.
I would agree with you, Councillor.
No matter what, I would say we will answer the call of whatever is approved by council. If it's a level of detail, we will certainly follow the guidance of council if that is approved for sure. I just want to make that clear that we will deliver the goods if we need to.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. Madam Clerk, can we please make the changes that is made or put on board?
Yeah, if you want to go to Councillor Knack, he can
Yeah,
state it.
Councillor Knack, can you please state your changes?
Certainly. Sorry, I didn't want to jump the queue here, but I can make that amendment, and we'll put that up. And, oh wait, it was sent in the chat. I think you had updated it. So that the motion on the floor be amended as follows: change the word memo to report, change outlining the work to outline current use, add a part 3 identifying the number of temporary workers by departments, and provide a breakdown of contract length over the past 5 years that have been rehired and the gap of unemployment between rehiring.
Okay, so that's seconded by Councillor Rutherford. So we have amendment on the floor, and we just focus our questions on the amendment, right,
Well,
Madam
and
Clerk?
I'm not sure if the city solicitor has seen this, so I'm not sure if I'm not sure if it's valid. So I just would maybe ask the city solicitor to confirm if what's on the floor now is actually valid or not.
Okay.
Well, like I said, I mean, I think the 4 corners of the wording is valid, but again, I am concerned about the intent for heading down in this direction.
So the motion itself is fine, right, if I understand, but the intent of what we want to seek may not be, right?
Well, I would just encourage council to have that open conversation now about what is the ultimate purpose for heading down with the volume of work that's going to be required here, to what end? Because if it's and any purpose that goes into the delegated authority of the city manager, I will challenge that as your legal advisor ultimately.
Okay. All right, that's clear to everyone, I hope. Okay, all right, so now I'll come back to the list. So procedurally, Madam Clerk, so we are now focusing our questions on the amendment only?
Correct.
Okay, on the amendment only, please, Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, thanks so much, and thanks to the original mover as well. I think that this is a really important topic, and I think for me the motivation is really around having it's actually to empower administration to come forward and ask for more FTEs. I think that FTEs can be very political. It can be seen as a bloated bureaucracy, and I think that this work actually offers a great opportunity to clarify that actually FTEs can be the most cost-efficient way to staff our city. So I know I'm supposed to be focusing right now on the amendment. So just for clarity, I guess I'm a bit confused, understanding that there is some work ongoing, that there is analysis to support that work that's ongoing. Is it specifically Part 3, this amended Part 3, that is anticipated to create the significant need?
It's the 5-year going back and reviewing all of those records. That's the challenge, exactly.
Okay.
So the general concept of having a contingent workforce, I mean, it goes without saying, every organization such as the City of Edmonton has to have temporary workers. It's clear. The question is, where do you have them? When do you use them? People go on parental leave. People get
Sure,
sick,
sorry,
right?
I just want
it is
to
specifically
focus.
the 5-year, it is that particular addition that came Monday to me personally, that we've been working for 48 hours to try to figure out the significant, and it is significant, impact on our resources to respond to that part of the motion. The rest of the motion we can respond to without difficulty.
Okay, great. That's a good clarification for me. And then just so I understand as well, so we've talked about seasonal workers, but again, I think there's a bigger issue, again, lived experience with CSU 52 in terms of the number of 11-month contracts in that union and in that work environment. I guess my question would be, if that work is underway in terms of looking at those 11-month contracts, what I'm hearing is that it would not include this 5-year review, but presumably it would include some form of analysis.
Okay, so I'm sorry, just to be clear, because it's very important to me. The 11-month temp contracts, let's just say that some are 18, but whatever, let's just use that as an example. And the seasonal workers, they're two parts of our contingent workforce. However, they don't necessarily, they're two separate issues that need to be dealt with.
Correct,
okay.
yeah, and that's what I want clarity on, because I'm hearing that there's work underway with the seasonal workforce, but again, I think it's a broad, it goes beyond the seasonal, it goes to the 11-month contracts and what that means throughout our organization. And again, just sort of that overall efficiency. So if I'm understanding correctly, maybe we can vote on the amendment in parts, because I hear the concern about what Part 3 will add to your workload. In the absence of Part 3 being added to the motion, would administration still be able to provide information about the analysis that is happening to inform the work that you're doing around seasonal work and 11-month contracts?
Okay, so I'm going to ask Georgina to jump in for a sec, Councillor, because there is a project charter that outlines the work that's being done that we are talking about. So that constellation of work, and it includes both seasonal and the 11 months. So I want her to respond to you because I believe it will be relevant and helpful.
So in terms of just providing a little bit of clarity in relation to the temporary and seasonal workforce review, I just want to frame for you what that work actually includes. So there are 4 distinct streams of work that are currently in flight. Stream A being what you're touching on now, and that's realigning the workforce. We're currently looking at recalibrating the employment status of temporary employees, so that would include not just seasonal but temporary reoccurring, to the operational requirements of the work. And that's a critical point here. It needs to be aligned to the work, thereby stabilizing service delivery by reducing the city's reliance on temporary workers. So I think that gets to the heart of what you're asking. It does require data analysis. It does ensure that we actually do understand the work, what's required, what's not, before jumping to making decisions in terms of workforce composition and movement of people.
Great. Okay, well, I'm out of time on that, but again, so I think I would like to vote on the amendments in 2 parts, because I think changing from memo to report is great, outlining the work to outline current use, and then maybe not support part 3, just given the implications, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Rutherford?
Hi, I would like to move to strike out part 3 of the amendment.
Second?
Okay, so there's a amendment to the amendment. This will be, that will be procedurally dealt with. So there's amendment to strike out part 3, moved by Councillor Rutherford and second by Councillor Stevenson. Any questions on the amendment to the amendment? Please sign up. If not, we can directly go to the vote. I don't see anybody signing up. So
Again, my e-scribe's not working.
you're not working, just raise your hand, Councillor Wright.
Okay, thank
Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
I guess so then.
Mic, please.
My question then, maybe to Georgina or Ms. Armstrong then, will any part of that, that information being requested in part 3, will that come out in other information that you'll be working on and providing to us? Maybe not as detailed by department, or would there be a scan of number of temporary employees that have been rehired?
Whatever we can provide, we will.
Okay, and then understanding the work, is that then in conjunction with those temporary employees, the work they perform?
So in terms of understanding the work, we'll be working with business leaders in the area. Obviously, there'll be some liaising with employees and frontline supervisors, but it will be a business decision.
Okay, okay. And then just a thought that I did have, these temporary employees are not only unionized workers, but they're also out of scope, right?
It includes all.
Okay.
Given the nature of the 3 different kinds of reasons why we have temporary employees, whether they be seasonal or not.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, just wanted clarity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Okay, no more questions on the amendment to amendment. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. Okay, so that's been struck down. Amendment to amendment is passed. And now we are back to the amendment. And I just need to see the list. Madam Clerk, just see the list. Here we go. There were other people on the Councillor Rutherford was to strike it down. Okay, got it. Now on the amendment, Councillor Wright.
I guess I just got put up there when I couldn't get.
Oh, I see. Okay. Any more questions to the amendment? I am seeing none. Please vote on the amendment.
We're just waiting for one more vote.
Sorry.
We have all the votes.
Display the vote, please. Okay, that has carried. So that's part of the main motion now. Okay, we're back on the main motion.
So we're just, as my colleague is just putting the amended motion up on the screen.
Yeah.
Can I just confirm the due date? I know that the bylaw says 13 weeks, but I know it's been our practice to confirm with administration that they have capacity to provide it within
Okay.
that time frame. So could you please clarify the date?
Please clarify the amount of time this would require. The
I'm
due date.
sorry, I just want to be clear. I apologize for not following everything. So we're back to I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
So part 3 is no longer part
It's
of.
not the 21,000 records
No,
anymore? Okay.
no.
We are fine
Here
with-
it is, you can read it, it's right up there now.
Okay, and I believe was October 3rd the date?
It was.
That's absolutely, I believe that is a reasonable date within which we can provide the report, yes.
And so that will, just to confirm, that'll be a report back to city council rather than a memo.
Understood,
Okay.
understood, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got it, okay. All right, so there was an order of council members on this. Okay, there weren't. Here you go. No, Councillor Paquette. Councillor
Yeah,
Paquette.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm assuming we finished our questions. Are we ready to speak to this?
I just have few questions, if anybody.
Okay, I'll hold back.
Okay, Councillor Knack, can you take the chair,
I
please?
got the chair.
So I just need to understand, I understand the caution is, from the caution that you identified earlier, does the removal of part 3 deal with that caution?
Well, in part, but I've heard different comments made about why this work should be done. So again, the motion, I think, is valid,
Yeah,
but I'm still trying to understand, is it to guide and tell administration how to manage its workforce by bringing forward permanent FTEs as opposed to 11-month positions, that kind of thing? So I'm still trying to understand why the work, what will lead so when the work is completed, what will be the purpose behind that? So again, I think it's fine to continue today. I would encourage council to be really clear on that.
Okay.
Because if the ultimate purpose is to change the workforce composition, then I would challenge you in October.
okay, got it.
Okay.
Okay, on to Mr. Corbold, you said you have already done some work where you transition temporary positions to permanent positions, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Your Worship. Sorry, Mayor. So you know, it's one of the things, some of the observations that have been talked about today are things that I observed in my first 6 months here and things that Ms. Armstrong observed and we've chatted about. That's what prompted the project charter that is being worked on. And I thought we had demonstrated to council we were committed to that by, you know, doing our first move with 46 positions, which, you know, QP was very, very pleased with and supportive of. And we have more work to do in that regard, and I intend to do that. But I also want to say that we absolutely need temporary workforce for some things, especially to help with some of our diversity and equity actions in the city. That requires temporary workforce to help us do a lot of those things. And so.
And the temporary workforce also allows, you know, for say students to work part-time for the city.
Correct, and apprentices that we talked about, you know, in some recent meetings. So, and a lot of people have had success eventually transitioning into the city through that program. So it's a great recruitment venue for folks. But I certainly understand the intent that the desire of city administration is not to have temporary work folks, you know, people to be on temporary for like decades in the city. That is not what we're trying to do. And that's why we've launched this project. That's why we want to review all these policies for all our pieces. So I just feel very strongly that we're committed in doing that work through Ms. Armstrong's team. They're doing a really good job on this. And I was a bit surprised to see this because I thought we had demonstrated progress in the last 2 months with our 46 positions.
Yeah, okay. That's all you need to understand, that if this work is already underway, right? Okay, got it. Thank you. I will take the chair back.
I'll return the chair.
Thank you. Councillor Paquette to speak or questions? to speak?
I am just to speak.
Okay,
There are other
Councillor,
questions.
Councillor Principe to speak or questions?
I do have questions.
ahead, Councillor
And
Principe.
actually, I was going to ask the same question you did, but I have a question to the mover, who, was it? Yeah, now it's Councillor Wright. Yeah. Okay, so what is the ultimate purpose? Because we heard from our legal that if the ultimate purpose is to possibly change positions, then this would be out of order in October. So, and since work is already underway, I would like to know what the ultimate purpose of this is.
Okay, so there's, I guess, a few different components to it. One is to take a look at FTE on a permanent temporary basis, because I think that will guide some of our budget discussions in the fall. It's not necessarily to tell administration to take somebody from a temporary position and put them into a permanent. That's not it at all. Because I know, there are cost implications with not only putting them to a full FTE, but also benefits. I think it's also for us to take a look at our policies as well related to our employees. And like I said, Policy 600, which deals with performance management, and also then Policy 612A, which deals with the living wage and how benefits really play into that overall compensation for our employees and helping them with maybe some of the inflationary pressures that we're facing.
Okay, and you think this motion will achieve that?
I think having this greater amount of information available to us will provide us more information to help make those decisions when we're talking budget in the fall.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Principe. Councillor Stevenson to speak or questions?
speak.
Speak. Councillor Rutherford to speak or questions?
To speak.
To speak. All right, so we will start with Councillor Paquette.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to say I appreciate Councillor Wright for bringing this forward. These are good questions. But I won't be supporting this motion simply because I think these questions are already being answered. I think this work is already underway with administration. And one of my concerns is that by sending them to do this other work that is tangential to the actual work they're doing or parallel, it will slow the process down and maybe and another large concern is that this starts to bump uncomfortably close to council's purview and the purview of the city manager. And it gets really, really close to micromanaging what is clearly not a council responsibility. What we do is provide policy and direction. And then city administration would take that policy and direction and maybe draw something up like this motion, but probably quite different because they've got a deeper understanding of what the challenges are. And as we've heard from Mr. Corbould, they're already engaged in that. And Mr. Corbould already identified this and is working on it. So the other danger here that I see, or maybe it's not a danger, but it is a concern, that it also leads us down a path that may bump up in very uncomfortable ways with labor negotiations. And we should be cognizant of that as well, because it's not council's job to engage in labor negotiations. That would actually be a very bad idea. So they're good questions, but I think they're already being capably handled. And then if this motion passes, by reading the text of the motion, it's very clear that the only thing that we would get back is a very high level report about what's already happening. There would not be time for an enormous amount of detail, for one thing, if the goal is to inform the upcoming 4-year budget. And for another, to get the deeper level of information, again, just looking at the text of this motion, if it went deeper, would take literally years to compile. Years. So I am inclined to allow our city administration to do their job and focus more on doing our job, which is less to get sort of our fingers into the daily operations and employment operations of what is really under the responsibility of the city manager, and get back to the work of council. So that's just obviously my opinion, Mr. Mayor, but that's why I won't be supporting this, even though I do think they are good questions, but I also think they are already being capably tackled. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. Councillor Stevenson?
Yes, thank you so much, and thanks again to the mover for bringing this forward. You know, we've had a lot of conversations in recent weeks around finding efficiencies, and I think when we think about finding efficiencies, it's, you know, let's cut this program or look at that service level. These types of changes are the really transformative ones that I think set our organization up for long-term financial sustainability. So I'm very excited that this work is already underway. I think that's incredibly encouraging. And I think a report provides a great opportunity to showcase that work, to raise public awareness about that work, and also provide, again, critically important context in advance of our budget deliberations. We're going to be facing all sorts of pressure, and the optics of more FTEs is always a challenging one. So again, I think this report creates a great opportunity to set out the value proposition of investing in our workforce, how that will make us stronger, leaner, and more efficient organization. So again, thanks to the work that's already been happening, and excited to be able to share more about this with Edmontonians. And thanks again to the mover. I look forward to supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Rutherford?
Yes, thank you to the mover for bringing this forward. I understand some of the concerns of my colleagues. However, I'm a big believer that discourse and public discourse as political figures is essential to the democratic process. And I have heard the perception from my residents and my constituents is that the city is not running as efficiently and effectively as it could. And so if we're not willing to have these conversations in public, including current state and what's planned to be done, that concerns me. A memo is great, but a report allows us for that public discourse. It allows for understanding. And the reality is even if the work is happening, there's clearly an information gap to council right now. I wouldn't be able to go out to constituents and tell them what work we're doing in this area. That's just not something I would be able to do, even with the memo that was provided last week. I think that, you know, we've talked a lot today about intention. We're governors, but as governors, we get to look at the totality of the organization and how it's running. And part of the effectiveness and efficiency of the organization is also the organizational culture. And I would contend that from my personal experience as a City of Edmonton employee, that the 11-month contracts creates a culture that is in misalignment with the direction that we as a council want to see this organization go. And so I think that we should not be afraid of hard conversations. We should not be afraid of a report coming back before budget to, like Councillor Stevenson said, if nothing else, be able to explain the value propositions for the way we're doing things and why we're doing them the way they are. And having a more comprehensive understanding collectively. So I do not think that the intent here is in any way to direct our city manager to how the composition of the workforce is, but it is to look holistically at the organization as a whole and how it's working and how it's functioning and how are we spending our dollars. Because if we are spending our dollars on a significant amount of turnover due to temporary positions, and I'm not talking about seasonal, I'm very pragmatic in understanding that we'll never not have temporary positions. But if we are spending a significant amount of money on the turnover costs for re-recruiting, for retraining, for overtime because we've lost positions because they've gone to other more stable work, and so then we have to pay overtime to, you know, get the snow plowed. I think that these are part of the conversation we need to have in the context of budget. We do need to be accountable to the citizens, and we need to be able to say that we have, you know, in confidence, analyzed the effectiveness and efficiency of this organization as a whole with whatever budgetary decisions we make in the fall. And so I will absolutely be supporting this motion. And I encourage all my other colleagues to consider supporting it as well, so that we can have these courageous and important conversations in the public space, in the public realm. I also do not believe that that conversation in any way impedes on any kind of union negotiations. I think that we have to be mindful of the questions we ask when this report comes back, and that would be good guidance from legal when that report comes back. But I do not believe that the answers that we're seeking today, nor the dialogue that we could have, would impact those negotiations. So again, I hear the cautions, I understand, but I do think this is an important conversation that we need to have as governors of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor
Point
Hamilton.
of privilege, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councillor Paquette?
Point of privilege.
Okay, just hold on.
With
Madam
all
Clerk.
due respect
Just hold on, Councillor
the
Paquette. Councillor
councillor
Paquette.
who just spoke.
Councillor Paquette, just hold on. Madam Clerk, point of privilege has been called, so I go to Councillor Paquette to state his privilege.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. Yeah.
What is it, Councillor Paquette?
With all due respect to the councillor who just spoke, there was intimation being made that council might be making a deliberation with an attitude of either being secretive or scared, that we are unwilling to have public conversations. And that is a mischaracterization, I believe, of council. And I don't think that that should stay unaddressed. And that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, Madam Clerk, what is the process to deal with the point of privilege?
I think he stated his.
He stated it?
I think he stated his privilege.
Okay, and he stated his concern.
Yep.
Then he wants it addressed.
And how do you want it addressed, Mr. Mayor?
That's what I need guidance. Should I go to the councillor who made comments to either retract
Sure,
those?
I haven't seen this, so yeah, that would be great, and I'll just check my book here.
Okay, so Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, I respectfully disagree with Councillor Paquette. I think that there was as councillors, everybody's going to have an interpretation of what we say when we speak to things. And there have been times when I've interpreted your intonation in a certain way, but have not called point of privilege because it's just my interpretation. I was speaking as a whole in terms of making sure we're having these hard and brave conversations in public, and I stand by my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Paquette, are you satisfied?
Yeah, just getting it on the record was enough for me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. Councillor Hamilton, go ahead.
I appreciate the discussion today. And this conversation has made me reflect on when I was in the 11 on, 1 off position, how I would have felt or responded to this kind of debate, or my friends and colleagues. But I fundamentally wouldn't have seen a material change in my quality of life or in the reasons that I was working 11 on, 1 off. But it's really not about me. It's not really about anyone around this table. This is, as Councillor Paquette said, about policy and direction. I don't see a very good argument for either of those in this motion. And once again, I'm concerned that we are flying below our altitude as a council. I'm conscientious of the concern the city solicitor has expressed with respect to undermining the delegated authority of the city manager. I think if we wish to revoke that delegated authority, we should have that debate plainly and not do it by death by 1,000 motions. So I'm not inclined to support this, and it has nothing to do with transparency or my own concern or my own reservations about having a transparent conversation about this. But having sat around this table for 5 years now, I can tell you that you can never have a truly public discussion about HR or workforce management or collective agreements. Those always have to happen in private for a number of sensitivities that this council is apprised of at this point. But I also don't think that it's reflective of a lack of desire on this council to see an elevated quality of life for people who work for or around or within this organization. And that's why we've done a great deal on Indigenous procurement. It's why we've done a great deal on social procurement. And I watched Councillor Paquette champion that last term. And I've watched this council champion Indigenous procurement this term, as well as ensuring that the way we are procuring, the way that we are bringing people into this city, whether as employees or as contractors, or merely providing services, that every single person is having a positive or as positive an experience as we can give them, and with a mind towards equity and quality of life. So I'm not inclined to support this motion, and you know, with remaining minutes, my remaining minute, there is never enough information that you can get at this table that will satisfy, I think, the inherent curiosity. It is really challenging when someone asks how many employees, permanent and part-time, temporary and full-time you have, that it can be a very vulnerable feeling to not know. But something that I have, and we all have to reconcile at some point in these positions, is that it's not our job to have all of the answers. It's our job to be able to ask the kinds of questions that can direct a better quality of life. I don't see that in this motion. And I, in fact, see something that undermines, I think, our own strategic objectives in the end, with respect to, I think, providing our employee, the city manager, and his employees with the ability to do their jobs and give us the best advice. So I won't support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Anyone else to speak? If not, Councillor Knack, can you take the chair, please?
I've got the chair.
Thank you. You know, I think it was last week that we received a memo from our administration. I think that memo has a lot of good information in it and a lot of breakdown on the permanent employees, provisional employees, temporary employees. I think that memo should be shared widely in public. I don't know why we don't. And I think that memo should be shared with the unions as well, because it really gives them information sometimes that our partners might be lacking that information. I think that should be shared. I am confident that our administration is already tackling all these issues. We have seen leadership from administration where number of positions that were temporary have been transitioned into full-time positions. So if that work is already being done, I don't see the need of any further direction. I think this motion is not needed at this time. once that information, that work is done, if there's more question, maybe we need to ask those questions at a later time. There's a role for having part-time workforce. There's a lot of people out there who are looking for a breakthrough to work for the city, because city is a very progressive organizations to work with. But if you don't have those opportunities to give them head start, whether they are students working in our pools, going back from school, and then when they finish, that they have that experience, they have that connection to the city, that they can look for full-time employment. There are a lot of new immigrants that would love to work for the city, but sometimes because of schedules in the family, that they cannot commit to a full-time job. They want to have that experience as part-time employees. I think that flexibility is not only necessary from operations of the city, but it's also necessary from achieving some of the equity goals. I had a round table with the labor leaders yesterday, and our city manager was present in that round table as well. And we heard from leaders that there are equity issues, that they would like to see more, people hired from racialized communities, from indigenous communities as interns or as apprentices, right? And I think we need to have that kind of flexibility in our workforce to open up opportunities for them, right? But I think all that work is being done, and we need to let our administration do that work. And so I will not be supporting this, because I see this motion is not needed at this time, because the work is already underway. And I will go to Councilor Wright to close.
I'll return the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Sohi. So I guess in closing, I understand the work is underway. But I think with the memo that Mayor Sohi referenced, it was confidential, and I would hope that the report coming back to council would provide a little more opportunity for council to debate some of that information when it does come back in October. And I do believe that it does help us to inform our policy direction, which is what we are as a council accountable for. And I don't mean to undermine or make it seem like I'm trying to undermine Mr. Corbold's responsibility, as he's often come to council even for specific direction on other matters that are within his area of responsibility. And I think it's good to have that sort of double check-in sometimes as well. As mentioned, I do think it is going to help us to take a look at and inform some of our policy decisions, or at least in my mind, it will help me with that, and also to help inform budget discussions, to have maybe a better understanding of where our FTE is set, whether permanent and temporary positions. And I totally recognize the need for temporary positions and seasonal work. It can't all be done by temporary employees, and there is a cost-effective aspect of having those temporary employees as well. So I just look to my council colleagues to support this motion, and looking for further debate when it comes back in October. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wright. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That has passed 7-6. Okay. All right. So we are 4 minutes away from 12. And we have...
Mr. Chair, may I move to bring a report forward? Is that possible?
Which report?
I wanted to bring item 8.8 forward.
8.8?
8.8, the motion pending. Or
There
do
are,
we have to go through them
there are
chronologically?
a number of motions pending, so Yeah, we can't bring, I would
Okay,
not suggest,
okay,
because there's
yep,
motions
withdrawn.
pending. Yeah,
Never
right.
mind.
And we don't have time, we only have 3 minutes. And so, Madam Clerk, all these pending motions would have to be moved over to the next council meeting
as-
after we come back recess.
Any motion that's not made today that has only been, that notice was given at the last meeting can be laid over again. Any motions that have been laid over twice can't be laid over. So I think off the top of my head, these can all roll over, but no motion is required.
No motion is required, they roll over to next council meeting. Okay, so that would be the case with these motions pending. And then we go to notice of motions or motions without customary notice. I see none.
I believe you
I
had
have
one,
one.
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, Councillor Cartmel?
Yes.
Oh, sorry,
Mayor Sohi.
go
I
ahead.
would like to move a motion that Mayor Sohi be permitted to make a
yes.
motion without customary notice.
Thank you for that. Oh my God. Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. Okay. Need a second for that? Oh, Councillor Stevenson seconded that. Thank you. Please vote. Yes.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. And Madam Clerk, can you give me the dates for that? The motion would be, I'll be moving that Councillor Paquette to be delegated as a deputy mayor during Pope's visit. And there's dates that you sent us, Madam Clerk. Can you give me, I don't have those dates with me.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to. So the motion actually needs to be that the deputy mayor and acting mayor schedule be adjusted so that Councillor Paquette will be the deputy mayor on July 24th all the way through to July 29th.
Thank you. So that's the motion. I need a seconder. Sorry,
Second.
I'll take the chair. And
yes, please. I
and
move
then
that
I'll-
motion.
And
Sorry.
sorry,
Second.
I've heard a second, so there was like a bunch, but I'll take it.
I second it.
Councillor Carmel, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the list of speakers or questions. So Councillor Rice.
I am not sure why my name there. I
Oh.
didn't click
Then
at all.
even easier, thank you. I don't see anyone else on the board for questions. Anyone wishing to speak to that motion?
I will quickly, if you allow me.
I'll just make sure there's nobody else if that's, and I'm not seeing anyone else go on the board. So this will be to you to close.
Thank you. I think, I want to thank Councillor Paquette for stepping up to be the deputy mayor for that very important visit from the Pope. And I also want to thank Councillor Knack and Councillor Jans for accommodating their schedule. I think it's very important that we, when Pope is here, and there'll be a lot of other dignitaries here, that they hear a perspective from Councillor Paquette that is very unique in his experience as being a leader in not only on this city council but also in the community and the work he has been leading as an indigenous leader, right? So I think people will benefit from hearing that perspective. So I think that will be a good opportunity for us to highlight some of the work that we're doing in reconciliation with indigenous communities as well. So I want to thank everyone for allowing this to happen.
Thank you. Please vote.
Yeah.
We have all the votes.
And display the vote. That is carried. I'll return the chair back.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Knack. Any other notes or motions? Motions without customary notice? Seeing none, we are adjourned. And everyone, have a nice break, and also administration, thank you so much for all the work that you have been doing over the last number of months, and I hope that you will enjoy a nice break with your family and friends and loved ones as well. Thank you so much, everyone.